cinnamon raisin bread with whole wheat flour. Now, doing whole wheat bread alone can be tough in most bread machines because most bread machines make the whole wheat bread too dense. But trying to accomplish cinnamon raisin bread is even tougher because cinnamon can make it harder for dough to rise, and whole wheat flour doesn't want to rise much on its own either. So trying to do cinnamon raisin whole wheat bread is a bigger challenge. But I've got a recipe for the Zojirushi Virtuoso Plus Breadmaker, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to make some cinnamon raisin whole wheat bread, and I'm pretty sure it's going to turn out very nice. So let's get started with that now. I'm Darnell with Wave Oven Recipes. So this all starts with making sure that the paddles in our bread machine are pointing in the same direction. That'll help make sure that the bread is a nice full-size loaf without any lumps or humps. And the first ingredient is 370 grams or 370 milliliters of water. So it can just be from the tap. It can be, maybe a little warm from the tap, but you don't want it to be very hot. I'm making sure that my paddle is straight after pouring that water in there so that they're both pointing the same way. I'm going to get the other ingredients now. Our next ingredient is honey, basically 2 tablespoons or 1 ounce of honey. So just going to get that into here just on top of the water, well, in the water. So get the 2 tablespoons in, and honey's kind of thick, so it takes a moment to get it poured out. So we got the other one in there. And our next ingredient is 4 cups of whole wheat flour. I get this whole wheat flour through Sam's Club. I basically buy it in bulk. It's really good whole wheat flour. I've really enjoyed using it. Nothing in this video is sponsored, but since starting to use this whole wheat flour and the price is good at Sam's, I just continue using it. So I'm going to get 4 cups of it in there now. And our next ingredient is 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm just going to scoop myself in a couple tablespoons of brown sugar. And I put that sugar on the sides. Try and put it around, just on the end. Put 1 tablespoon on one end, 1 tablespoon on the other end there. And the next ingredient is 1 ounce of dry milk. I also get the dry milk through Sam's Club. Also put the dry milk on the sides. And next goes in 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. So I just put those also on the sides. Don't want to have those in the middle. But there is a little something I need to do in the middle of the dough. I need to make a little well for where I'm going to put my yeast after I get the other ingredients in. Now the next ingredient is 1/4 cup of vital wheat gluten. And this wheat gluten helps the whole wheat dough to rise, helps make it into a real nice loaf. You don't use vital wheat gluten and a good bit of it, your wheat bread will not rise. And if you've been trying to do whole wheat bread in a bread machine and wondering why it doesn't rise well, if you're not using, like I said, the vital wheat gluten, that's likely a big reason why. Or if you're using it, you may not be using enough. So for each cup of flour, use about 1 tablespoon of vital wheat gluten. Now what I have here is 1 ounce of softened butter. So I'm just going to take the butter and I just kind of drop it in little chunks around side parts of the bread holder here. So don't want it all in one spot. So I just, as you can see, get pieces of it and distribute those around. And the next ingredient is 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You have to be careful where you place the cinnamon because it will impede the rising of your dough. So I usually just kind of put it over on an edge. So get my cinnamon out and just going to stick it over on this edge over here. And the last ingredient for this portion of setting up this whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread is some bread machine yeast. And so I get 2 teaspoons of it, and I stick those into the little well that I made earlier. So filling in the well with my bread machine yeast, like so. Now I'm going to take my bread holder here, get it into the bread maker. I'm going to close up. Alright, getting you in close here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hit the coarse setting. And the coarse setting is already on 2 because I've made wheat bread before. So you want it on 2 for your whole wheat bread in this bread machine. You can do crust control if you want a different crust. I'm going to go with the default. And going to basically go ahead and hit start. And going to let this run for a while. I'll have to come back to add the raisins when it's time to add the raisins. You can see with this bread machine, it tells me what time it's going to be done making this bread. So it's going to be done a little after 10. So I'll bring you back in a little bit to add the raisins. Okay, things have started beeping to add the raisins. I've got a cup of raisins here. Going to open up and it stops beeping. Now what I like to do, I like to get that whole bunch of dough out. Get it all out. And now that I've got the dough out, I'm going to make sure that my needles or my pins for my bread machine are, I'm going to take and make sure that they're pointing the same direction again. Get them back in straight alignment with one another. Got those kneading rods back where they need to be lined up. And I'm going to take the dough and I hand knead it into the raisins. So I hand knead all the raisins into the dough. I found that's the absolute best way to get the best mixture of your raisins into your dough. Alright, now that I've got all my raisins mixed in pretty well, just gonna, any that fall out, I'll just kind of press them back in, but put it back into the bread maker and it's gonna basically start kneading, and it'll get them, you know, further mixed in even better than this. But I found this is a good way to get it started, to get a really good mixture. So with that, I close up and I let the bread machine continue to do its work. I'll bring you back when this is all done. Alright, it's done. Just stop it there. And there we have our finished whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take it out of the bread maker there and just shake it out onto this cooling rack. So there's our completed bread. Just going to turn it right side up. There we go. A completed loaf of whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread. What I'll do from this point, I'm going to let it sit on this cooling rack for 1 hour, and then I'm going to bag it up, put it into my bread box, let it sit overnight, get it a little firmer, and once it's a little firmer tomorrow morning, Lord willing, I'll slice it up and do some taste testing of it. But if you slice it up now, just coming out, while it tastes great and terrific, coming out nice and hot, it doesn't cut as well, it falls in more. If you give it some time to just get a little firmer overnight to set, it's real easy slicing. So we'll get into this tomorrow. And so here we are the following day, and I've got my whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread and my bread slicing guide here. And so basically going to slice it up. Alright, we've got our bread all sliced up, and typically you can get about 16 slices out of a loaf using like a bread slice guide like this. But just going to let you have a look inside. You can see inside of the bread. You see the Raisins are very well distributed. So I feel this turned out very well. So I'll just take this slice here and just set it on our plate and give you a closer view. See it, the raisins, really nice distribution. Nothing settled down in the bottom here. So that's some real good distribution. And so with that, we'll do a taste test. All right, so here's our whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread. It rose really well. Nice distribution of raisins. So let's see how it tastes. I'm trying to see if I can find a bite where I can get some more raisins. So I'm going to bite around this part where I can get some raisins in the bread to taste it all together. Okay, tastes good. Good cinnamon raisin bread with the whole wheat. I like it. I've tried like whole wheat cinnamon raisin bread with some other bread machines that let's say were of lesser quality, and they weren't able to do whole wheat with a really nice rise and really nice airy whole wheat bread. It's like really dense. So if you do your whole wheat and it's coming out really dense even after you use some vital wheat gluten and such. And it might also be the quality of the bread machine. So it could be a number of factors with whole wheat bread because it's so kind of particular as far as getting it right. You've got to have enough vital wheat gluten. You've got to have a quality bread machine that can mix things up right. A 2-paddle bread machine definitely seems like it's going to do better than a single paddle bread machine. So there's a lot to consider there. I mean, usually any bread machine can do white bread. They might have slightly varying degrees of how well they do white bread, but all of them, most any bread machine you get can make your white bread if all you do is straight white bread and nothing else. But if you're getting into more particular stuff, you're getting into the whole wheat, you're getting into the gluten-free, and on and on and on, then you need probably a higher caliber bread machine like this Zojirushi, very good one. And basically you can find this bread machine and everything that I usually use in these cooks and such. See in the video description a link to my Amazon shop. And you can also search there if there's something that I didn't particularly post. You can search there for anything else. But usually I get a lot of the stuff that I use from there. And also you can always find recipes like this recipe I'll post and others at superwaveovenrecipes.com. I'll have the whole recipe and a link to a printable version of the recipe in the video description. Also, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wave Oven Recipes. And if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, share the video with a friend, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and good eating.